So a few days ago, Five Below started putting up posters for the last act, the theatrical release on June 4th. And some of those posters have something on them that the original poster didn't have. There's a small cartoon bee sitting on the poster that wasn't on the version we saw back in April when the trailer dropped. The poster went up earlier than it was supposed to. It was clearly meant to come out closer to the premiere date. They are currently being recalled. So someone took a picture, and within hours, people were already making theories about it. And I get why, because bees aren't just there for no reason in the show. Bees are Caine's watermark. In episode 8, his office has bee drawings that he made for Zubul, and there are bees drawn on the spine of some of his books. In episode 7, when Abel shows the group a blueprint of the circus, there's a crossed out bee on the side of the paper, which is what confirmed that Abel didn't draw those plans himself. Caine did. The backup files in the episode 8 code are labeled A, B, and C inside the AI folder, and the B file has never been identified. And in the video I made about the third AI, I talked about how B sits right between C for Caine and A for Abel, and that B, the letter B, could represent a third entity that nobody has found yet. But there are two details on this poster that go beyond just, it's a Caine bee, and I want to talk about both of them. First thing is the eyes. The bee on the poster has two blue eyes. Caine has never looked like that. Caine's face has always had one blue eye and one green eye. The green one being Jeffrey that Kevin Temmer named, and that moves on its own separately from the rest of Caine's face. If this bee was just Caine coming back after being deleted, you'd expect it to have one blue and one green, the way he's always looked. Two blue eyes is different. Blue is Abel's color, the blue dot from the opening of episode 8 that got absorbed by the red dot. And in the intermission scene, there's a moment where Caine is surrounded by blue eyes. Only blue eyes, not a single green one. So this bee either isn't Caine at all and is actually something closer to Abel or whatever came out of the fusion between the two of them, or it is Caine, but something changed during the deletion and he lost a part of himself. And if you go back to the intermission scene, there's a moment where a die rolls and lands on three dots that turn into two eyes and bubble before merging into one entity. The theory has always been that Caine was three things merged together: the blue eye, the green eye, and bubble. So this bee might actually be a part of Caine. The second detail is what the bee is looking at. On the poster, the bee is staring at a lamppost. And a few weeks ago, Gooseworks replied to a tweet about the poster with, "Oh, what a silly lamppost." People thought she was talking about Jax's accident, or that she was referring to lampposting. But now there's a bee on the official poster staring directly at a lamppost, and that silly lamp spot post suddenly looks a lot less like a coincidence. And there's a connection here that I haven't seen anyone else make yet. In Kaufmo's room, there are paintings covering every wall, and one of those paintings shows Kaufmo standing under what looks like a lamppost, while he stares at an abstracted figure in the distance. Most people think that painting shows Kaufmo watching Ribbit abstract, because Ribbit was the last person to abstract before Kaufmo. But look at where Kaufmo is standing in that painting. He's directly under the lamppost. The light is right above his head, so it might be connected to the story between Kaufmo, Ribbit, and Jax. Now let me go through the theories. The first theory connects Bubble and the bee. Gooseworks said Bubble got deleted along with Caine, but there are still bubbles floating around in the episode 9 trailer and on the poster. And now there's also a bee on the poster. If Bubble is a surviving piece of Abel, then the bee could be a surviving piece of Caine. And the two of them together are what's keeping the circus from going completely dark. The circus is still standing after Caine's deletion, even though there's no reason for it to be. The cast can still walk around and use powers in a place that should have shut off the second Caine got wiped. If it's not Caine running things underneath, and it's not Abel, then it might be these two leftover pieces doing the work. The second theory is about Caine's bee and Kinger's butterfly. There's a video on YouTube about this called "The Truth Behind Caine's Hateful Bee and the Healing Butterfly," and it breaks down how the two insects represent opposite things in the show. Kinger's butterfly heals, we saw it fix Ragatha in episode 6, and Caine's bee marks ownership. Every single thing Caine creates gets stamped with his bee watermark, like a brand. And the three characters most connected to the creation of the circus are all tied to insects. Queenie studied entomology before the circus. Kinger picked up his love of bugs from her and can conjure healing butterflies. And Caine uses bees as his personal signature on everything he makes. And bugs in English also means programming errors. So Queenie studying bugs could mean she was looking for flaws in the system her husband built. And the whole entomologist thing might have just been a facade. Maybe Queenie wasn't actually studying insects, but bugs in the system instead. Someone in my comments also pointed this out. The butterfly Kinger summons is a monarch butterfly. Probably the most recognizable butterfly out there, and one tied to royalty just through its name. But the butterfly on the desk looks more like a blue morpho. So what if that desk actually belonged to Queenie, not Kinger? Now if the bee on the poster lost its control function because Caine is dead, then this bee might have shifted into something closer to what Kinger's butterfly does. Something that guides and helps instead of something that owns. This theory is probably the simplest one. If you look closely at the bee on the poster, it's wearing Caine's hat, the same little top hat that Caine has had on his head since the pilot. That hat belongs to Caine and only Caine. So the bee might just be Caine, reduced to the smallest possible version of himself after the deletion. Too small to run adventures or control the circus or do anything Caine used to do, but still conscious enough to fly around the ruins, maybe helping the cast escape or understand the reality behind the circus. The two blue eyes instead of one blue and one green separated during the deletion and went somewhere else in the system, while the core piece of Caine survived as this tiny bee carrying nothing but his hat and his original eye color doubled. He went from being the most powerful entity in the circus, the ringmaster who controlled reality itself, to being a bug on a poster that nobody would have noticed. And there's one last theory that I left for the end because it sounds insane, but the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced it might actually be the right one. And then there's the bubble theory, which ties back to the Bible. So in Genesis, Cain and Abel are the first two sons of Adam and Eve. Cain is a farmer, Abel is a shepherd. They both make offerings to God. God prefers Abel's. Cain gets jealous and kills his brother in a field, which makes Abel the first person to ever die in the history of the Bible. God punishes Cain by sending him to wander the earth forever, and Cain ends up building the first city ever mentioned in Scripture so that people can live away from God's presence. In the digital circus, Cain absorbs Abel, the blue dot, and builds the circus the same way biblical Cain killed Abel and built the first city. But in Genesis, the story doesn't end with Abel's death, because later, God gives Adam and Eve a third son named Seth, whose entire purpose is to replace Abel and continue the family line, so that humanity survives after the murder. Now, Gooseworks confirmed that Bubble is constantly pregnant, and in the show, Bubble literally says, "I'm having a baby."
I'm having a baby.
So if Bubble is what's left of Abel, then him having a baby would mirror Adam and Eve having a child in the Bible. And that child, Seth, might actually be the bee we see on the poster. Bubble has been carrying Seth inside him for 8 episodes, and the bee on the poster could be Seth, freshly arrived, with 2 blue eyes because he's meant to replace Abel, the blue AI, and Caine's little top hat sitting on his head like something passed down from one dead brother to the new one who just showed up to take his place. And I saved this one for the end because out of everything I just went through, this is the theory I think is the most likely to actually be right. It's crazy how just a bee on a poster could actually tell us that much about where the show is going.